Good evening, everybody. We're just waiting on Chad joining us to make it 3, but I don't think he'll be very far behind. How's it going anyway, Milbillie?
I'm fine.
But you've still got a bit of the cold, have you?
Yeah, I can't get rid of it.
Weather good over there?
Oh, we're supposed to get 3 inches of snow tonight.
Oh, lovely.
But
we haven't had any snow at all.
Not much snow either. Surprisingly.
We normally have snow at some point in January or February, so
I mean, Sunday was almost 50 degrees outside, and today it's like 15.
Wow.
And that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius for you people in the UK and Australia.
Sorry, it 15, did you say? That's like our 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is your 50.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. Could be worse.
Yeah, but today it's 15 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's below freezing.
All right. So very cold.
Yep.
Well, that's probably why you can't get rid of your cold. That's probably one of the reasons. First of all, in case obviously people hadn't heard, the state. What's the woman's name? The lawyer, the assistant attorney general, acting on behalf of the state.
It's right there. Right there at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Anyway, she's been given. I make it a 45-day extension.
Mm-hmm.
I make it. It was due the 11th, so in terms of actual days, that's a 45-day extension, which is, half of the 90 that they got the first time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was just reading what Charles Darwin had sent, so I'll just read through that again for you, because I've got it right here. Surprisingly enough, I've been, as you know, sending stuff to Emery Matesic. I hadn't heard anything from Charles Darwin for about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Roll. Lisa Kumpfer. I hadn't heard anything from Charles Darwin, as I say, for about 3 weeks. But then, of course, I've started sending these videos to Emily Matesic, and of course this was a reply to the one video. This was a comment in the video that I did where I sort of pointed out that making a murderer was pretty poor when it came to the handling of the sexting scandal, and it should have done far more. It should have really gone to town with the sexting scandal. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll have a little bit of Chad's poems in a wee while, but first of all, here's the comment from Charles Darwin. And good evening, Chad. I'm just going to read a little bit from Charles Darwin. Hiya.
Hello.
So I'm sure I shared this with you, Chad. I'm sure I shared this with you. He put, Mr. Capaldi, as you probably know, the docket indicates that the state filed a motion today to further extend the deadline for its appellate brief, currently February the 11th. Compare this to Zellner, who has been asking for extensions for years, starting back in early October 2017. After the court's October 3rd ruling, Zellner immediately asked for and got a 6-month extension of time until May the 21st, 2018, to file her brief. This was before she raised the issues about the bones and the VLE-CD, for which she obtained additional extensions. The state has only recently had the opportunity to respond to her ever-changing arguments. So my prediction on your statement to this filing is as follows. I think Paul Capaldi will say, in words or words close to this, extensions are only valid and okay when the felon's attorney requests such. An extension requested by the state is obviously unfair, stalling, crooked, a setup and indicative of multiple instances of malfeasance. He put, "Am I right or am I right, Mr. Capaldi?" so seemed a bit sort of bizarre how he went into so much detail. So I simply replied back to him, "Hi Ken, how's it going? I noticed that you removed all your videos from your YouTube channel. Are you embarrassed by them, or are you really embarrassed by them?" So it seemed a bit bizarre, that message from Ken. It was like trying to say that I was going to sort of criticize the state for asking for an extension.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful, personally, that I'm hopeful that the state are actually looking at it sensibly and thinking, what's the best way out of this? But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, gentlemen? Are they just stalling?
Out. They're stalling, man. I mean, like you had enough time to get it together. That's what the whole original trial was for,
Yeah.
Your theory was supposed to be set in stone at the prosecution trial, the hearing.
Yeah.
How much fucking more time do you need?
Well,
a lot, obviously.
Yeah, they're messing about, but anyway, it's they got their 45-day extension, and
they have to go back and remember all their lies. It takes 45 days to get it in order. So
yes, I can imagine that Lisa Kumpfer, I bet she's being inundated with Ken Kratz telling her all about the blind spots, isn't he?
Right. Going over to sweat DNA.
Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the Super Bowl.
I was right.
Yeah. I think everybody said it was going to be Kansas, but when I tuned in, I mean I wasn't staying up that late, but when I tuned in and it was 20-10 with less than 10 minutes to go, I'm thinking, well, surely San Francisco have got this, haven't they?
Nope. Kansas City's done it all season. Been down even more than just 10 and come back and won.
But with just 10 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, So I'm just wondering, did San Francisco drop the ball, or was it a case of Kansas City playing particularly well? Did San Francisco drop the ball, or is there some other issue? Maybe some of the San Francisco players actually had money on the Kansas to win. I don't know.
They wanted it more.
Yeah. What I was sort of alluding to there, though, is the fact that when Steven Avery settles for $400,000, was that Steve Glynn advising him badly?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
It goes beyond.
Or is there more to it than that?
Beyond.
Well, he tells Steven, we're gonna have to put your lawsuit on hold.
Yep.
And then he comes back and says, okay, it would be best if we just take the settlement so we can get you a lawyer. Why not just go through with the lawsuit?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that Laura Riccardi, in that one phone call, when she speaks to Steve and says, why have you taken this this settlement? Because she saw not just the problem with it being a really low amount of money, but it's the terms, isn't it? The terms of the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly were those terms again, Chad?
Do what now? Repeat.
Sorry. Yeah. The terms of the agreement, which was what was really bad about the settlement. if you remember Laura Riccardi in the phone call to him.
Paul, I think you got some kind of crazy connection from Scotland coming to me, man. I've been on my phone all day.
Mine's fine.
Yeah.
Been on my phone all day. I connect with you, and it's
Wisconsin
don't want us.
You've won it out. That's what it is. You won it out. I'll say it again. Then it was just the fact that we hear Laura Riccardi in the phone call talking to Steve, saying, "Why have you taken this? Not only why have you taken the small amount, but also why have you gone for the deal?" Which means that they cannot then hold Manitowoc at all responsible. I think that was the main problem there, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That if you can't, you only get 400,000. Which
at first his concern was bailing himself out, and then he realized that wasn't going to happen. So then he shifted towards, okay, I'm going to have to get an attorney.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I've always been of the opinion that there was no need to start trying to settle the lawsuit. For me, the biggest problem is that you then allow Vogel and Kusurik to not to have to come forward and look at the look at the attorneys across the table and give their explanation as to what the hell was going on. I mean, they were in serious trouble, I think.
Well, you got to remember, a week before Teresa goes missing, Kukurik's attorneys try getting they request that he doesn't have to attend in the deposition. And they're like, no, he has to show up and he has to answer every question.
Yeah. What were they offering instead of him turning up in person then? Was it that they thought that they could simply send him a few questions and he could fill in a box?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that doesn't surprise me. And did he give any reason why he shouldn't have to come and give evidence?
No.
And sitting at that, was that not something to do with William Griesbach?
Yeah. They're all.
Hello there.
You back?
How's the connection to Scotland working? Is it working again?
The audio's messed up.
Yeah.
Let's see. Talk.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
This choppy.
Yeah. I can hear you now.
The metal plate and Milbillie's head between us.
No, I think the thing about Glynn that worries me is when you have Tom Fallon at one point in early on, I believe in Steve's case, when he uses those words, they do so at their peril. I wonder if there was some sort of threatening going on there.
Well, I mean, I think it was kind of just signaling the entire courtroom. You know, I mean, you have anybody with a state bar license. You know, your prosecutors, your judge, and your defense attorneys. You got to keep in mind that Fallon had more power than Patrick Willis. You know, and if you got that much power in the courtroom, the case is already thrown, basically. You know.
Well, it just struck me as being an odd thing to say to it doesn't matter what the context is, but to say it in a court of law, they do so at their peril. It just struck me as being, it's not the sort of thing that you would normally hear.
It's like a warning, and you got to think the way it's said, like, even it's almost like it's directed to everybody, that even if like Judge Willis accepts it as their defense, that it's at his own peril too, because anybody to believe the rubbish of the plant job, then it's at your peril regardless. So if Judge Willis was to take it, and run with what the defense attorneys were saying, would it be at his peril as well?
Exactly. What we do know as well about Steve Glynn is that little snippet from, is it Super Lawyers?
Do we know about Steve Glynn?
There's a clip on Super Lawyers about Steve Glynn where he talks about the fact that he basically says that he immediately thought that Steven Avery was guilty of this attack on
right.
Holback.
Right. In the Super Lawyers magazine, he says he pulls his head, he covers over his head and wishes that he could go back to bed. And then when he went to court that morning, he said he was glad that he had his wife with him to help to drive him home, because he don't know, because he just lost it when the evidence started pointing to Steven Avery. And you got to understand, this was the day that he's arrested. This is on November 9th, okay? And so all the times through November through February, we have Stephen Glynn believing that Steven Avery is guilty as sin, okay? And I find a problem with that.
Well, what I would ask is, do we know for sure that's what he thinks, or that's what he thought, or is he just saying that because basically everybody was just turning their back on Steven Avery? You've got Mark Gundrum 1 minute quite happy to be seen with him, and they've just gone through this Avery commission, and they said how terrible it was about the tunnel vision and all this kind of stuff, and yet they're doing exactly the same. As soon as he got, when Steven Avery should only have been a minor suspect, when you consider the fact that in most cases, when you have I believe it's something like 98 or 99% of the time, when you have a homicide within the, shall we say, the white community, a white person on a white person, it's somebody they know. Is that about right?
Well, unless
and like there was no presumption of innocence for Steven Avery whatsoever. You brought up Mark Gundrum. Mark Gundrum, he's saying that his condolences go out to the Hallback family, and he's wanting to change the name of the Avery bill because of Steven Avery's atrocious acts towards Teresa Hallback. But he's actually doing this, and they haven't even formally charged Steven Avery with homicide yet. His charges came in after that press conference with Gundrum, which is what's disturbing, because he's the man who was sitting at the Avery task force and trying to get the Avery bill passed so you would have the presumption of evidence. And here we are, 6 days after Steven Avery is only charged with possession of firearm. He hasn't even been charged with homicide yet, and he's already saying, "Oh my God, Steven Avery's the guilty one." He's not giving us presumption of innocence.
Yep. Milbillie, what you were gonna say something then?
Well, like I said, it really was Steven Avery versus the state, the whole state of Wisconsin, not just the officials. The media did him no good. And they're getting all their information directly from the sheriff's department, so that's who's to blame.
Well, yes, clearly. I think when it comes
They're
to,
holding press conferences every single day, starting the night she's reported missing.
yeah, and in the ideal world, you think most people would think that if law enforcement, shall we say, are coming out giving a press conference, it's because they've got something to say. And certainly here in the UK, there's no way that they would be allowed to do those sort of speculative press conferences, the likes of the, certainly not the March 2nd one, but even some of the other ones before that. You're only allowed to sort of say that if somebody's helping with their inquiries.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so I have. Do I have a certain sympathy with the press? They're simply trying to. Obviously, they are putting out the story as presented to them, aren't they?
Yep.
And they're quite happy to parrot it. That would be my take on some of them. They're not doing any kind of investigation into what's being said, are they?
No. Well, look at Emily's interview with Steven.
Yeah.
And then compare that to other interviewers.
Well,
it just.
Yeah.
She was trying to get him to say something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, she was like, she couldn't understand why Stephen wasn't just quite happy over the phone to when confronted with her telling him all.
You gotta remember though, he called her.
Yeah. Well, I think it's set it up, haven't they?
Each one of his attorneys even when he had his public defenders, they're like, stop talking to the media. What does he do? Calls the media. Calls the news, and right before they go live, they call him on. And then he gets his other attorneys. They tell him the same thing. Then he gets Dean and Strang. What does he do? Goes and talks to the media again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can understand why he did that, because you figure he's locked up. The only communication he has to the outside world is his family, which is mostly his mother or Debbie. Every time he asks anybody in the family to do something for him, it's like they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he asked Chuck to go talk to Radant. Never does it. Asking Barb to do things. I can't even count how many times Steven told Barb to get Brendan an attorney. Never listened.
Was that telling him to get an attorney even before he's interviewed?
Yeah. Telling all the boys' attorneys, tell them don't talk to the police.
Yep.
And then what do they say? The day after he's arrested, they talk to Steven after they all visit Brendan, and they say, you're right.
Yep.
So I told you.
Yep.
Now it's interesting that.
Well, that's
Dean
better.
Stranger,
That's better. We can see it now.
It's interesting that Dean Strang, picks up the phone at Stephen Glynn's office.
Yep, he sure does.
There's an ethic rules violation, 1.9, and Dean Strang picks up and he represents himself as Stephen Glynn's partner. Okay. But there's an ethic rules violation that says any former lawyer whose client is in their firm, they cannot represent that person. And we don't have any separation from Strang from Glenn's office, okay? And then there's no waiver of consent where Dean Strang talks to Steven Avery about this, to say, hey, you were a former client of my past partner in the firm. He's not even allowed to represent them. So I'm wanting to know what Kathleen Zellner thinks of this. It would be all good and fine if they explained to Steven Avery what's going on and they signed a waiver to explain him that. But I don't believe there's a waiver that exists between Steven Avery and and Dean Strang when he does get assigned as counsel.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it. I don't know if y'all have, but I mean,
No.
It's pretty interesting. This ethics rule. It's 1.9 and 1.6, and it goes into a lot of detail. That is, I'll put a link up to it, but it's really interesting.
And this comes under conflict of interest.
They don't care about that.
This ethics rule, yeah.
Conflict of interest, my ass.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking. As you're saying, Chad, if they've gone to this lengths to discuss conflict of interest, with lawyers, what's happening with the Manitrock investigating when they've got a conflict of interest? It's. I mean, I would imagine that there's never been another case similar where a sheriff's department with that kind of conflict of interest has gone in and investigated it themselves, has there?
Well, the Manitou can argue all they want there. They're just there to assist. That's bullshit. Audio is something completely different.
I got one for you, Paul.
Yeah.
Tell me how you get so many experts. Norman Gann, he's political expert. He's got all these theses. Jerry Buten's writing the law. How do you get so many experts on this case on both the prosecution and the defense? And it's the worst drop ball in the history of Wisconsin's case. Tell me how you get all these experts and nobody gets anything right. Not on the defense side, not on the prosecution side, not in the state crime lab. Any level you go, there's a ball being dropped at every level.
I must admit. Sorry, yeah, yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when I was watching Making a Murderer, I was always waiting for the moment in the whole of the proceedings where you were going to get the experts that we had in the second series. I was always waiting for them to turn up in the first series and for the expert to say, no, you can't cremate. You can't create those sort of bones just in a bonfire, I mean, even before I'd ever watched Making a Murderer, I knew that was going to be impossible. You don't end. I mean, the bones aren't just cremated, are they? They've actually gone through some sort of is it pounding that they take to make them small and
right,
they go through. There's three processes.
Yeah. After you burn the body,
after the body is burned, you pulverize it.
Yep.
They pulverize it so it'll break up the bones so more fire and stuff can get in between it and burn everything down to ash in the third stage. So yeah, I mean there's a stage. There's several stages to it.
Mm-hmm. They burn the body, then they crush the bones, put it in a box, and then they got this machine that tumbles and breaks the bones up into powder.
I mean, that's probably why one of the reasons why there is only 40% of the bones. The fact that the rest were just reduced to so much ash and and dust. That's it. Although we do know that some of the main bones were, that it's always been presented that there was a bone from just about every major part of the body, but I don't think that's actually correct.
And the fact that they're finding bones in multiple locations, nowhere near Steven Avery's property.
Yeah,
and like the foot that they say, oh, it looks like a human foot here, but then it turns into a piece of insulation. Like, how the hell do you mistake a charred foot for a piece of insulation all of a sudden? I mean, come on.
Yeah. And also, I was waiting for the expert to come in and say, well, that's just bizarre how you've got that blood stain. The one by the ignition is clearly has been applied with something. It was. I mean, it's quite comical, isn't it? But I was always waiting for these experts to come forward to bust. Look, maybe I'm a bit naive, but I genuinely watched Making a Murderer, expecting by the end of episode 10 for everything to have been sorted out. Because we're kind of used to happy endings, aren't we? I mean, okay, I've watched Titanic. I realise that doesn't have a happy ending, you know. But that's what I was. That's what I was waiting for, you know. I mean,
there was room on that damn door for him to crawl up there. By the way, just saying. Just saying.
Who's that?
I said there was room for him to crawl up on that door with her.
Wait, who's that? Sorry.
Oh
yeah.
Don't let go.
Yes. Yeah. Now I remember being in the pub and somebody asking about Titanic that it'd only just come out, you know, and the one guy turned to the other and said, "You've been and seen it?" Yeah. He says, "But does it have a happy ending?"
Hello. The whole fucking shit down.
Yeah. And you know, believe it or not, there's a huge conspiracy about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard about that one.
Yeah, they did it for insurance reasons.
Two ships,
Yep.
the Titanic and the Olympus.
Yep.
Swapped them over, sank the Olympus because it had actually suffered a crash with a naval boat.
Yep, and again, insurance money, they switched them out and sank it.
Because normally what happens is that all the guys that were responsible for building it and then shipping it from Belfast to Southampton, they would all be retained and go on the maiden voyage. Mm. Not one of them wanted to stay on that ship and go on the maiden voyage. But anyway, that's one of those other interesting cases.
A lot of people are on that boat too.
Sorry?
Said a lot of important people are on that boat too.
Yeah. Yep. It's going a bit darker there, Chad. It must be getting about twilight now.
6:18.
Yeah. Yep. So one of the funny things about you calling yourself Voldemort is the fact
he who should not be named.
I don't think it applies to that. It's more a case of a little bit of a parody on Voldemort had his 7 Horcruxes. Ken Kratz has his 7 Brady violations.
Right. 700.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about that message that Charles Darwin sent. You know, I think I sent it to you, didn't I? His sort of message about the going through it all. It seemed like he's got very little to say other than trying to suggest that I will present it in one way. Well, I was quite happy to read out just what he wrote, and it's so Lynn, is it Lynn Comfer? Did we decide that was her name? Lynn Comfer. So they got their extension. You both called that ages ago. You were telling me that the state will ask for an extension, and they get it for 45 days. It's half of what they got the first time. Do you think they originally wanted the 90, and the state have said no? The Court of Appeals, you're only getting the 45.
I still think that the evidentiary hearing is going to be shut down.
You think so?
I still think so. I mean, just the political power that's involved. They don't want to give Steven Avery a evidentiary hearing. I really don't believe that. They're going to come up with anything in the books to keep him from getting this evidentiary hearing.
Would that in effect kind of hoping that they will, but you've been so right on so many things. Basically, you would see it then as an evidentiary hearing. Would to them it would be the beginning of the end.
Right.
Because it would just be so embarrassing.
Let's say if he gets an evidentiary hearing, it's going to be the shortest evidentiary hearing in the history of Wisconsin all of a sudden. But see, here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons I don't think he'll make evidentiary, because it's going to be so embarrassing. They're going to pass it up the playing field higher to get more protection. You'll be able to have Josh Call be able to step in. You'll be able to get get more.
think this works out better for him because now we get to see what's going to transpire in Colburn's evidentiary hearing first.
Right.
Right.
And that may have implications to help Steven Avery.
Yes, I mean, Kathleen Zellner described it when she heard about the fact that Goulburn, I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Right before Christmas.
Sorry?
Right before Christmas.
Yes, that it was described as a Christmas present, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For Zellner. Anyway, I think time for a bit of poetry. And I know that Chad was saying that he doesn't like reading them himself. So hopefully I will give this a reasonable go. Okay, but really good poem. This is by
Thank you, Guy.
This is by Chad Keller, and this is called "And Everything's a Conspiracy." They ask, please, bittersweet, a figure of speech, tongue in cheek, until the taste in my mouth lingered for weeks. Now riddles and treats, how this literature reads, it literally glitters to me. Never to belittle the general public that reads. A cynical siege fiddled to those caught in the middle of dirty deeds, red-handed with thumbs twiddled. Speak in tongue-twisted liberal pleads. Picasso paint as a visual, please. Plattish snobs with turned-up noses, one visceral sneeze. It's as the media's paid to speak in gibberish, geez. As if we go in circles on spherical leads, so nasty a pit bull could have the scoop but wouldn't eat it up because it's a licorice leash. World news, but they downplay such a serious piece. Egypt, Asia, Russia, Germany, and Serbia's peace. But forget to somehow mention that it's America that's the delirious beast. Dr. Seuss, please come back from the dead and speak in nursery rhymes to what's really happening outside the middle arse east. Oil spill, cover-ups, unfair taxes still for the middle class as we support murderous police. Our own government spirals me out of control on its tangent in a poetical heat that Nixon at a barbecue couldn't dice out with Watergate, that cooked up nowadays with political grease. And everything's a conspiracy, they ask? Please. Well, that was very good, Chad. Very good. Really enjoyed that one.
Well, thank you.
Very, very good. As you were saying, hopefully you're going to get your book of poetry done soon. I'm also of the opinion that they would make pretty good rap lyrics, wouldn't they?
I don't know. You'd have to.
Yeah, I think you need to. I think you need to get in touch with someone like Eminem, and see what he thinks of them. Send them to him because.
How are Brad Dassey?
Well, that was what I suggested to Chad earlier. But maybe both of them and see which ones will run with it. But yeah, it's. I think it's easy to forget that you're. You've sort of, as I've said before, you've got Chad. You've got an interesting background. Milbillie, I don't know much about you, as much about you, but I'm sure you've got stories to tell. But Chad, you've actually gone through the whole process of being wrongfully convicted and exonerated. So you were telling me the other day that it gives you time to think about. Things, and by writing things down, reading books, writing things, it takes you somewhere else, doesn't it? It takes you somewhere where it's like me in music. I like certain sounds because it then takes me to somewhere else, somewhere that I haven't been before. Mm-hmm. In terms of the sound of certain chords and certain for what we would call a certain groove might do that as well. A certain rhythm that you haven't heard before. You think, wow, that's really good. So yeah, it's interesting stuff, pal. We're going to have to get a few more of your poems read out and let people hear. Because I was going to touch on something that. You get one or two people that come along with supporters, and I don't want to dwell on this because because I don't think they fully understand the situation. But some people say, "Oh, you've got Chad, and he's he kind of he's been sort of verbally aggressive towards that person or that person or that person," and I'm like for goodness sakes, man, can you not realize how divisive this injustice is? It causes people to when you've not got somebody to sort of lash out at, I took my frustrator on Robert Herman. I kept phoning him every couple of weeks for 6 months, and that was my sort of remedy, if you like, But what can you do? It's we're not all going to get on all the time, But as long as we're all pulling in the same direction, then I think there has to be a little bit of leeway. Anyway, let's leave it at that, shall we? Because the one thing we don't want to do is to give the Guilter community anything that they can fire back at us, do we? We don't want them just trying to stir things up just for the sake of it. Anyway, how are we doing? We're already up to 40 minutes. Listen, it is nearly midnight here. Can we finish off, and I can get you back again sometime? Is there anything that you'd like to add to what we've discussed, or otherwise, before we say cheerio?
I've been researching other cases here.
Yeah.
It's connection to my father. And
right.
Some in 1974, some 15-year-old paper boy was doing his paper route, and one of my dad's friends had testified against a biker gang 3 months prior, and the people they testified against got convicted. Well, they placed a bomb on top of his car, and the paper boy is the one that found it.
Wow.
Killed instantly. And after that, another 3 people go missing, and there's also another 3 murders.
Wow.
His case is still unsolved, along with everybody else that lost their lives following it.
Wow. That's pretty scary stuff. So is it easy? I can't imagine it's quite very easy to get much detail about that. It's not like you can Google much. Yeah,
there's a couple articles, but
right.
I was always piqued my interest because my father always discussed things with me.
Right.
That happened with him in his life and friends and stuff. So
sure. That's nothing to do with that reporter Ira Robbins, though, is it?
No.
He didn't cover any of that. No. Okay. Well, interesting to see what you can find. As I say, here in Scotland, we've been looking at the.
There's tons of evidence. They have an informant say that they're going to find this person's body in this location.
Oh, right.
They find a body there.
Right.
They got tons of evidence pointing at who did this, but still, the Waukesha County District Attorney claims that there's not enough evidence to pursue charges.
Interesting. I say we've got a case here.
It's the Larry Anstett case.
Sorry?
Larry Anstett. Killed in 1974.
So Larry Anstett.
Anstett. Anstett.
ANS.
I'll post you a link to the article.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Sorry, Chad. Anything that you wanted to add about Mr. Glynn?
Yeah, just in our, I guess when we crank back up, the Criminal Justice Study Commission, Stephen Glynn was seated on that, and there's a lot of interesting details and links that I got scrounged up that would be interesting to go over.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I'm not. Whenever you've got something like this, it's like where did it start? Where did it end? And how involved are these different players in doing their bit of it? So, was some of it just these things would tend to happen naturally, or
Right. Well. Here's the most disturbing to me is the commission. Okay, their charter statement says that you were not allowed to point fingers at a certain county. Can anybody guess which one? A specific Steven Avery's case for the Penny Bernstein case, but yet that's what Stephen Glynn's civil suit is for Steven Avery. Yet when you're a seated charter member, the statement says you can't do that. So I mean, when we go over some of these links, a lot of people are going to be like, "What the hell's going on here?" I mean, it gets very disturbing.
Yep. Any thoughts on rules comment there?
Any rules on what?
Rule is, but who of you thinks Lisa just wants to stall until Tom is back from sabbatical?
Like I said, I think like it's going to be embarrassing if they do an evidentiary hearing at this level. So I think they'll want more protection. So it's gonna. I just predict it's going to bypass the evidentiary hearing. It's going to drop into a different playing field.
Well, yeah. Be interesting to see. As I say, for me, the hope is that they're actually looking at it sensibly and they're trying to figure out what's going on here and really how are they going to let go of this ever-rising balloon?
We've seen a lot of firsts in the original trial, so you're going to catch a lot of firsts in the appellate court. So believe it. I mean, it's going to be a lot of firsts again, and it shouldn't be surprising to nobody when it happens. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
These are some nice words. Some nice words from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Milbillie is one of the most prolific researchers as well. There are many great researchers out there. We are all just as equally important and bring something quite unique to the case. I totally agree with that. We all provide a little bit of something, don't we?
Good words, Obi-Wan.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to say cheerio, and it's been a pleasure to have you on, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Right.
Yep.
You know the routine by now. Yeah, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from. Sorry, do you want to say cheerio?
Cheerio.
Cheerios.
Cheerio, and it's goodbye from then. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Let's see if we can. That's it.